shows from back in the day, and he was like the best on it. He was like a hypochondriac, like just he was great. So, anyways, funny in that, and it was the first time I'd ever seen him in anything. And then now of course he's popping up in all sorts of different things, and he's yoked for this one.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be good. And look, here's what it comes down to: trust the Feige. Just trust Kevin Feige. That's all you got to do, man. Like, it's like, okay, it's weird. I don't know what's going on. I don't really know. I don't really understand it. But you know what? It's probably going to be pretty good because Marvel's making it, and Kevin Feige just doesn't miss.
Look, I spend a lot of time. I work from home. That's not a pandemic thing. It's been like this for a while, so I spend a lot of time in this area, and I try to maximize it as much as possible to separate work and relaxation. So I have a projector and I have a white wall up here. So I turn my room into a movie theater to get away from work sometimes. And the amount of times I've just casually, while working too, watched through these Marvel movies, couldn't even tell you. I'd be embarrassed at the number of times, to be honest with you, because it'd be really high up there. But in 10 years, what's going to happen? Are you going to keep watching these movies over and over and over again? And I think, yeah. So, you know what? I'm with you. Blind trust. In New England, we hear of this, in Bill we trust. Well, in Kevin we trust with the MCU.
100%.
Yep. And, I'm excited for it. And I'll tell you what. We won't spend too much time on this because I feel like this could be like a 6-part series, but let's just consider ourselves lucky that it is Kevin and not Zach running the MCU. Yeah. And that's I'm someone who greatly enjoyed the Snyder cut of Justice League, but no, I think on top of casting, obviously show running, Marvel hit it out of the park, and you got to just trust them moving forward until they give you a reason not to.
Here's what I'll say about the Snyder Cut, and the one thing I liked about the Snyder Cut, as I can't imagine sitting down and watching it in one viewing. I can't imagine doing that, but I did enjoy how they made it accessible, because I was like, I am never watching that, and they were like, well, it's 7 parts, and they'll have like a half an hour each, and I'm like, oh. It was like a miniseries. Cool. All right, I'm in for that. Right. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I literally watched it like a miniseries. I watched it over 3 or 4 days, and I was like, okay, that's manageable for me. Mm-hmm. I can't sit down and watch a 4-hour movie. I can't. I'm not doing that. But if you're gonna give it to me in half an hour to 35-minute segments where I can watch it, sure. And look, I'll never watch it again. I just won't, because it was fine. It was good. It was fine. It wasn't like. It's hard. It was obviously better than the first one, but the character development, it just wasn't there. I'm sorry, it just wasn't. It was fine. It's a decent movie, but give me that movie in 2 hours. Yeah. That's what I want. I don't need 4 hours. Find a way to make that 2 hours long, and now you got a movie.
And especially if you don't have that character development, and that's a great point, because on top of the lack of that, that movie's coming on the backdrop or the foreground, leading into Endgame and Infinity War, going head to head with Marvel. And if you could sit there, compare and contrast, it's like you were so emotionally attached to the characters in these Marvel movies, and with Justice League, it's like, okay, I enjoy the movie, but I'm not necessarily emotionally attached to the Flash or, a Cyborg or anything like that. I see them as interesting characters. But I don't, just get to the point. Don't sit there and try to develop characters that have no development whatsoever. You had the bit of the story with Superman and Lois Lane, that, a bit of that backdrop from the previous movies. But even then, it's like, I just wasn't emotionally drawn in. However, I did sit down and watch the full thing, 4 hours, but I also don't have kids, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to do so.
Right.
And again, the putting myself in that movie setting really kind of kept me going. But at times it is tough. 4 hours, that's a long time for anything, even if you enjoy it. That's pushing it when it comes to sporting events, let alone movies. But
right.
No, that's so anyways, that kind of leads me into we talk about how great the MCU has been when it comes to not only casting, just the movie selection, everything like that. You recently did on your show, Armchair Superheroes, kind of a collective. You took in, I think you said, what was it, 29 total?
29.
Yeah, 29 different submissions. That's pretty incredible. But 29 submissions of people's rankings, 1 through 23, the movies so far. And I was telling you, and while making this list, it became difficult because I knew, there's going to be some tough decisions, but the reality of it is there's only, of the 23 movies, there's only 2 of them that I actually dislike, which is really incredible. And it obviously I like some more than others, but 2 movies, and they were very popular last choices for a lot of people, I'm assuming, on this list, because looking at the group's entire list, you can kind of surmise where they all landed. I put Thor and Dark World and Hulk at the bottom of my list, and 2 movies that I'm probably never going to watch again. I'm not going to say that because, again, I tell you all the time, I watch these movies, and you always get to the point, if you're going either chronologically or movie release wise, where you either run into the Hulk or you run into the Dark World, and you're like, do I have to sacrifice? I'm trying to do this legitimately, and I know if I skip this, it'll always be that, well, I didn't actually do the whole watch through, but it's always difficult. So I always struggle with those 2 movies.
I feel like the Dark World maybe more so. Like, you could make an argument that the Hulk is just completely irrelevant. There's nothing doesn't tie into the MCU whatsoever. I mean, I know Thunderbolt Ross is in there, but like, he's the only reason that movie relates to the MCU at all. I mean, it's not even the same Hulk character, right? So like, nothing relates. Now they might bring Abomination back. There's some discussion about Tim Roth coming back as Abomination. So in that case, then it becomes more significant. But like, I don't know how much I like that, man. Like, what, he's just been chilling in cold storage for the last 15 years? It's just kind of like, what are we doing here? So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I just kind of feel like it's unnecessary, Well,
and look, we know, for most of us probably know the whole situation with the Hulk character itself. It's tied up with Sony, so they can't do like a Mark Ruffalo like standalone Hulk film, which, I don't even know if it would be good. I love him as the Hulk, and I love the Hulk character, but like, maybe too much Hulk. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I think he's great when he's like, Ragnarok, for example, which landed very highly on a lot of people's lists, and rightfully so. I think it was great casting between the 2. I thought, obviously, Thor and Hulk and the whole cast of characters really played well off each other. I don't know if a standalone Hulk film necessarily gets me going, and I know that might upset some people I know because they're big Hulk fans, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it, and that's the thing about what's interesting about it. So when I did the consensus rankings, what I did is that, you ordered it from 1 to 23, and then I just gave out points. So, okay, if you had something as your number 1 movie, it gets 1 point. You have something as your number 23 movie, it gets 23 points, and then so on and so forth. And then, of course, then the lower the number, the lower, right, the higher it goes in the ranking, right? So the only movie out of 29 in 29 rankings, the only movie under 100 was Infinity War. Had 83 total votes. So then you're talking about, okay, now it's what, like in the top. The thing about it, and these are the top movies, right? No one has it super low, right? So it's like the lowest someone had in Infinity War was like 10 or something like that. Like, nobody had it outside of the top.
I have to talk
10.
to that person.
It was my kids.
Oh, okay, all right, never mind.
Because they're like, like Thor Ragnarok is so much fun, and like Spider-Man.
Okay, you know what? Awesome. Okay, I gotta agree with them on that. I can't. Maybe have an Infinity War low, but they said Ragnarok and Spider-Man, so they're good. They're good with me.
Right. So that's like the thing. But then you look at so Infinity War and Endgame were 1 and 2, and Endgame was surprising it was so high. But the other part of it was that, again, it's the same thing where it's like people have it pretty consistently in the top 5. And so it's like, if you consistently have it in the top 5 for the majority of those 29 rankings, some people have Winter Soldier high, some people have a little bit lower, some people have Ragnarok high, some people have a little bit lower, some people have so it's like, Endgame is just consistent. It's like everyone has it in their top 5 to 6, so that's why it gets the votes that it gets, and it ends up being where at number 2, because it's like, yeah, no one's voting this as this 15th best movie. It's just not happening, so like, anyways, but
okay.
No, I was going to say is that the next 7 movies, right? The next 7 movies are separated by a total of 57 points.
Oh, wow.
For the next, so from number 3 all the way to number 10, all the way to number 9, I'm sorry. So from 3 to 9, the 9th movie had 57 more votes total out of 29 movies. So like they were all really close, right? Kind of in that bunch. And it's those same movies, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Guardians, Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers, and Iron Man. So like all those movies are like, they're right up there. So everyone's got them, but then it's like, okay, some people have one higher than the other. Like I have Guardians number 2 overall, right? Some people have it 7, some people have it 8. So like, and so that's what happens. It ends up kind of fluctuating a little bit, but they're all pretty close. And so it's kind of funny how it all shook out,
Well, those are really the hardest ones too, because the way I did the list is like I knew right off the bat, I knew like the worst 2, and when I first watched these movies, my instinct, my initial reaction was that Infinity War was better than Endgame. So ultimately, that's what I went with. But I think the more I watch Endgame, sometimes I get more nostalgic. So like sometimes, you know what I mean? It kind of bounces back and forth. But I also think that's why it's so hard to separate the two, and that's why they ended up being 1 and 2 on my list, because like of all the things I like about Infinity War, there's also a lot of those aspects in Endgame, but they both have their differences. I mean, obviously, Endgame, you can sit there. I know people are like, oh, it was predictable. It was too much of a fan service, blah, 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 all that. But they did that so well with how they brought back everything, and that's really what you want in a finality, a final episode, a final movie, a final conclusion to what was really, a years-long arc. And what they did was, well, how do we bring a lot of these characters back without making it feel forced? Well, they time travel, and yeah, people scoff at that, but they did it within the realisticness of what was happening. And again, it didn't feel forced. The bringing back the characters didn't feel forced. So at the end of the day, like some people will sit there, oh, I didn't like Endgame because of that, and they'll just kind of stand on that hill for some reason. And I don't get that, because like I really enjoy the movie, and I feel like the more I watch it, the more I really do enjoy it. But at the end of the day, Infinity War was just, it was so good. It was so good.
Well, what someone pointed out to me, which is true, is like, your enjoyment of a movie, it should be part of where you rank it in a good movie or not, right? Like, if you enjoy that movie, right, it should be pretty high up just because like you enjoy it. Now, that doesn't mean it's the best movie. And yes, I think as a movie, Infinity War is clearly better than Endgame. But I've watched Endgame, which is 3 hours long. I've watched it more than any of the movies because it's so good. And I sob like a baby every friggin' time I watch it, probably 4 different times for the movie. I just I can't help it, because that's what, like, every single time I watch it. And it's like, it's fantastic. Like you said, it is some fan service, but like, it's not over the top fan service. It's like, this is what we want to have happen. And actually, dude, when Cap ends up with her at the end, it's like, that's amazing. Like, it's just, you couldn't have possibly ended Phase 3 any better than they did.
And again, I'm glad you said it, because it's like the enjoyment I get out of watching the movie from the very beginning. Like, I love the cold opening. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. If you pay attention, you see the whatever you want to call it, the dust when they do get blipped, and you can see those little details, and just the quiet. I don't, just everything about that cold open. I love. And then again, the music, everything I love. And then
the 5 years to me, like, there were some moments for me where like I like audibly gasped in the theater. Like, I'm not a big like I don't say anything. Like, I never, but like when it comes up and they kill Thanos, and then you're like, and it's like slow too. Like they do it on purpose. They do it and it's like 5, then it's like years, and I was like, like years,
Yeah.
like years later, like holy crap, and like they leaned in.